Okay, that is not something you see every day. I don't know if I'm impressed or scared, to be honest. So I've noticed whilst playing DDO that I never really take any time to give any particular class I'm playing at the time any real gratitude or any of my sort of overarching thoughts. And well, I've been playing Warlock for quite a while now, so I figured it's worth perhaps just making a video to just showcase my time, the time that I've had with the class, what I've enjoyed and perhaps what I haven't so much. So yeah, I guess you could kind of mark this video as like, I played Warlock for X amount of days and maybe these are my thoughts or something to that sort of tune. But yeah, I mean, I just want to kind of go over the time that I've had with the class, because Warlock really is not something that I really gravitate towards at all in any RPG, and typically most casters really aren't really my go-to. When I think of what actually drew me to the Warlock class initially, it was less about what the class could do, because when I was new to DDO I didn't really know what the Warlock could do, but I really enjoyed the mystique of a Warlock, the mysteriousness behind it, the idea of essentially sealing a pact with a certain devil, I assume, for these ungodly powers. And what I've really enjoyed in DDO is watching that pact get stronger and stronger. As you can see here, I've chosen the Pact of the Fiend, and just watching every single level as I've started to, gain more pack dice from my feat choices, just watching this class get stronger and stronger with every Eldritch Blast. You're hitting for more and more. Now, my initial thoughts with Warlock when I first picked it up was, oh, I see, like, this is kind of just like a wizard, right? And there are many of you that are probably going to be recoiling in your seats right now, like, blaspheme, blaspheme. But I just didn't know how much not like a wizard this class was. Like, when you've played a Warlock, everything else feels infinitely more difficult to play. Like, there are so many abilities that you've got on this particular class that you can just cast for free or for nothing. In fact, the reality is this particular class couldn't be any further from a wizard if it tried. The fact that you don't use really any real intelligence, apart from the sort of base value I've got here, I think, as I've just picked up gear, but you're instead focusing more on charisma, which to me really leans into the archetype of, especially with a tiefling warlock, this kind of like charming, charismatic devil, silver tongue, twisting words, and more importantly, twisting spells. I honestly think that particular archetype is just really, really interesting. You've almost kind of got this innate built-in scoundrelism about the class as well, but yet you are somewhat, even though your intelligence stat isn't particularly high, you feel smart. You feel like there are certain ways that you can work around things, whether you are, bluffing certain NPCs to get out of certain situations, or even bluffing in the midst of a fight to lose any aggression towards you. The class really plays into itself, and if you're looking for that sort of thing, this particular class will tick a huge box. The Warlock, to me, from the moment that I started playing with it and started to really see the progression of the class, has kind of felt like a bit of a fine wine, really. I mean, it starts off okay, but the more time you put into this class, which can be, said for a lot of classes, but specifically the Warlock feels like this for me, the more time you put into it, the more it just gets infinitely stronger. I mean, some of the abilities and spells that you've got on this class, for example, this one right here, Evard's Black Tentacles, is just insane to use at any time. For example, this. Don't ask me why I'm running this with a level 3 hireling, but I just thought I'd chuck her in there for whatever reason. But yeah, to my point, let's talk about some utilities of the Warlock. This Evard's Black Tentacles you will use all the time, and I use all the time, even now. It does so many things and gets you out of so many sticky situations, but the Warlock doesn't just have utility. I mean, the damage available on this class it's just astronomical. It is so powerful the higher and higher you level up. In fact, I would say probably the one thing I really don't like about this class is just having to swap weapons to do these levers here. I believe you can get some spells to be able to do it as well, and cast certain spells to be able to hit certain levers or break certain doors, but I couldn't really work it out. None of the skills or spells that I've got seem to work, but it's not too much of a pain, but it can just kind of ruin the flow of things a little bit once you get going. When you start to get access to abilities like this, Wellspring of Power, through your epic destinies, and then you can go ahead and pop Tainted Spellcasting, the damage you can then start to output and start to weave into certain rotations, it just grows infinitely. You know, if you get an aggression from mobs here, you can use your black tentacles, push them away, and it just makes things so much easier for you. When I first realized that you could just hold down the attack key in Eldritch Blast form and essentially cast a spell from each hand, or what feels like a spell from each hand, consistently with absolutely no spell point cost whatsoever, my mind was absolutely blown. In comparison to other classes, like early on, your resource management on this class just feels so much better, and you just feel so much more impactful much earlier on. In reality, your main worry as a Warlock is pretty much going to be just keeping yourself alive. Like, you're kind of going to rely on displacement to stop you taking attacks, and really kind of rely on a hireling to keep you alive, because your healing potential outside of, you know, use magic device, scrolls, wands is pretty limited, to be fair. But you know, if you've put your points in early on to use magic device, or you can invest in a decent hireling, there's not many things that really you can't overcome, at least, you know, solo. Now, I did have to do a little bit of research when I first picked up the class about which pact to go for, because, you know, as you're new to DDO, there's a lot to learn, there's a lot of mistakes to make, and, well, you kind of have to narrow down what are the major resistances in the game, what are enemies mainly weak to, and it seemed like, for me, fire was something I was going to have the least amount of trouble with. So, you know, I swiftly kind of made that choice, and honestly, I haven't regretted it at all. There's been some difficult spots sometimes, but not really. As soon as I could get access to my epic destinies, I spec'd in this Dragon's Breath, which not only looks really cool, I'll kind of get a better shot of this when I can, but it just has one of the most pleasing sound effects to the ear that I think I've experienced in this game so far. It feels incredible when it goes off. I'll try and get it on this enemy here. And visually, it just does so much damage as well, especially when you crit. It's really cool. Little things that you're just not going to immediately know, like straight away. Like, for example, like what spell school your Eldritch Blast falls under. The fact that you can change the damage type to like evil on certain skill trees, and the fact that you can stack your damage with your pack damage as well to, you know, really kind of fine tune your build. And there's a lot of mistakes that you can make with certain allocations of points that you just either have to make those mistakes or, you know, research. And to me, that kind of really fleshed out the fun of the build, to kind of see where the Warlock would go and what the potential was. And the potential is great. There's a lot of it. I really enjoy the spell fantasy as well of the Warlock. Like, the idea that you can't just access all of your spells at any time is really quite cool, because if you think about it, everything you do within the Warlock subset is a trade. Like, everything's a gamble. You know, you have to give something to take something, and that works well with spells as well. The fact that if you want to change one of these spells, you have to pretty much sacrifice one of them, and if that's for better or for worse, that's for you to decide. But really interesting once you start digging into what's available to you. It definitely has to be said that the Warlock for me has felt strong most definitely through the majority of my playthrough, but to me the class really came online when I reached level 20. And when you start to dig into your epic destinies, I personally find that this does wonders for the Warlock in every single aspect. In particular, the Shiradi champion tree here has really buffed up my damage. I definitely consider myself more of a solo player. That's not necessarily just because I'm a bit of a recluse, which I guess I am to an extent, but I just kind of find it hard to line up my times with other people and find like a fairly consistent group, whether that be just due to my timing or just on the wrong server. But I'd be quite keen to see how this class plays out in a raid, or how it doesn't play out, as the case may be. Also, selfishly, we spoke about spells a little while ago. I have really enjoyed the fact that this class has the access to Expeditious Retreat and Featherfall really early on, two spells that you are going to use way more than you think you will if you are brand new to this game. Especially early on, if you don't have the spells, you'll at least be looking for those abilities out of the gear that you're getting as well. So yeah, Warlock definitely has a head start in that department for sure. I think above all else, I've really come to enjoy the use of SLAs, which are spell-like abilities on the Warlock. These are abilities which, in my opinion, are just absolutely busted, but in a really good way. The fact that you can add meta magic effects to buff them and pretty much just cost yourself nothing to cast them, like for example there with Eldritch Wave. it just makes the damage so strong for such a little cost. After playing around with a lot of the different variations of Eldritch Blast, I've definitely come to the conclusion that the cone is just what I really enjoy using. I really questioned the range of it early on. I thought there's no way that's going to reach that high or low, but the radius of the cone blast is just insane. But you know, above that, I also really did enjoy the chain bolt, which I think is here somewhere. Is it this one? Yeah, Eldritch Blast shaped chain. That's really cool to see it dart across the room and hit multiple enemies. I must say, when I first started playing Warlock, and this might just be because I was new to DDO in general, I didn't quite understand like what weapons to use or like what was good or expected on a Warlock until I pretty much realized that, you know, no weapon is really like, well, really seems to be like that important over and above the stats that it actually carries. Like, for example, I mean, I've not got a great example right now because I still need to swap some of these out, but right now I'm rocking a scepter in one hand and an orb in the other, and before that I've used a quarterstaff, and I think that's really interesting that the Warlock just doesn't really care about weapons. Your hands, your Eldritch Blasts are your weapons. I think one thing I'm still trying to get my head around on the Warlock, especially now as I'm approaching the later levels in the game, is kind of trying to work out like what gear I should be, you know, chasing for, farming, because that's another thing in DDO in general that I've just really not really grasped yet. I don't really know what I don't know, if that makes sense. I just kind of don't know if I should be chasing a certain gear set, or, you know, whether I should just be reincarnating on the first life. So that's something I'll come to work out in time. I love how that Evard's tentacles has been there for ages, and those enemies have just run into it and it just stays for so long that it even kills them. You can honestly just set it and forget it. I would honestly say, without any research, that this spell might just be one of the most broken spells in the entire game. Like, I wouldn't honestly know what to do in certain situations without it. It's only just popped in my mind after seeing this rest and resurrection shrine here, just how little you actually have to sit at one of these as a Warlock. I mean, you can see now I'm not really even close to max level. I mean, what's max level in this? 31, 32? And I have got 2100 spell points. And honestly, most of my abilities are empowered, maximized, and quickened as well, the ones that I can. And genuinely, I never feel the need to sit at any rest shrine at all, especially compared to like my wizard that I've got on another server. To me, this class definitely appeals to people who are more fast-paced, right? Like, I hate to stereotype this because I've got it as well, but anyone who suffers with like ADHD that just wants to just get in, blow stuff up, and like get loot and get out, this class is definitely for you. Like, you aren't waiting for anything. You aren't needing to rest, as I said before. Like, everything just happens. Press of a button, boom, blow something up. Press of a button, send a demon back to its planar hell on a different existence. You know, you've got group holds, you've got stuns, you've got everything available to you. It's definitely important to mention that if you are brand new to this game, or if you're just considering Warlock for the first time, definitely do some research, like I mentioned before, like even just a little bit. And there are so many great content creators out there that just dedicate all their time into putting these builds together. I mean, this particular build right now has taken direct inspiration from one of Strimtom's videos. I know Axel, he doesn't really play like Warlock, for example, but he's got a lot of great character builds on his channel as well, and, you know, use them. These resources are there because it is a confusing game otherwise. This is my first real time getting this far into the game, and you know, I've not really dabbled with all of the ways to play a Warlock. I am quite interested whether I maybe reincarnate or go again. I'm quite interested in playing a melee version of the Warlock to see how that works with the Eldritch Aura. Now, I'm sure, you know, there are going to be people out there that will say, oh, this is stronger, but, you know, meta isn't always important. I think having fun is more important, and the class fantasy of kind of a melee-wielding Eldritch Knight, or it just sounds really interesting to me. I guess if I was to come up with some negatives for the class, I mean, we spoke about one earlier about the class not really being able to heal itself that much, but I suppose you could lean into that a little bit more and say, you know, like when the class does get hit, it is pretty squishy. You just have to bear that in mind. Like, really, you can't take too many decent hits, not at higher difficulties, that's for sure. And then, of course, you've got to bear in mind that if you are someone who likes to see what weapon they're using at all times, if you like that kind of class fantasy, if you're Eldritch Blasting, you're not going to see that. Your weapon is just going to be hidden. Yeah, I mean, as you can see here, without displacement on, I'm definitely taking some damage, so you just have to be mindful of that. But really, I mean, they do say offense is the best defense, so just kill things quicker and, you know, you'll survive. That's pretty much how it works. To be honest though, I find that whatever the class lacks, I would absolutely give that up to not have to stand in these piles of oil from these dogs or deal with like rust monsters head on. Like, just never having your gear broken because you're not having to physically touch anything is really a huge benefit. When the topic of Warlock comes up, the word versatility definitely comes to mind. I mean, even outside of combat, you have uses such as Dimension Door. Being able to port yourself right back to the beginning of the instance is handy in so many ways. You've got a teleport for yourself or the party that can get you out of situations, you know, pretty quickly, or port your party wherever you need to be. Some more spells that I found really handy to have on my time on the Warlock has definitely been the Fire Shield and the cold version of the Fire Shield, and then not to mention Dispel Magic. Dispel Magic is definitely something that I personally use as I've got further into the game, where there's some awful spell wards that can do horrible things to your character and pretty much take you out of certain situations and kill you really easily. And then just having these fire shields to take half damage from the polar opposite fire damage that you're due to take. Overall, your stat allocation for the Warlock, or at least mine, has been fairly simple. As you can see, most things just go into charisma, which means that you can kind of focus your main heavy thinking into, you know, what do you want to put your points into for your enhancements or your epic destinies, or, you know, what feats do you want to take as you level up, because there'll be a lot of them. But that's a benefit of the game. It's just really cool to see the flexibility, what you can and can't do. And, you know, whilst there is definitely meta options, it's always nice to give people choice. I was really quite skeptical with the solo viability of Warlock on the basis that I'd never really played one before, but really, honestly, this class has been super easy to play through. I mean, yeah, sure, like in Elite, you struggle as you would probably on most classes, but on hard, normal, it breezes through a lot of stuff, providing you're, you know, actually at the relevant level. And, you know, I just kind of want to get a bit more time spent playing in a team sort of party environment to really cast an opinion on, you know, that subset of the class. There has definitely been quite a few situations on my solo playthrough that I have honestly been so thankful that I've been on a Warlock, just being able to deal with masses of enemies running at you and not really having to worry too much, being able to kind of kite enemies back, keep your distance, and just utilize the tools that you've got access to in the form of your spells and spell-like abilities. Once you get used to those rotations, the class really does feel truly alive. I'm only just realizing this now, after like mowing down loads and loads of these zombies with my Eldritch Blast, that I totally forgot that this particular class or this build is structured around being able to confuse enemies with a certain chance with my Eldritch Blast. Every single time I cast the ability, I have the opportunity and the chance to confuse an enemy and just turn it on one of its allies, or, you know, just immobilize it completely. There's just something so satisfying about seeing all of those numbers come up on your screen. Just loads of purple, really high numbers. It makes the brain do happy dopamine things. I say that as I then walk through a trap. It's a good job we're not on Elite. Although you can't really innately heal yourself over and above like maybe one or two abilities, I do enjoy the fact that you can access this ability here called Stanch, where you can sacrifice some of your total hit points to gain, I think it's a maximum of 50% of your overall hit points, but you can essentially like gain a buffer that really gets you out of some really sticky situations. It's kind of nice if you're, you know, soloing and just kind of running into a bit of a crowd and you want to prep yourself a little bit. There's something about all of these numbers popping up on screen with all of the challenges that you're ticking off, like your monster manual, the damage you're putting out, and just seeing all these enemies just die and just fall over. It just makes you feel a certain type of way. Like, that's prime Warlock right there, just deleting an entire room. Like, even when you know you're pretty low on HP, just coming out on top. That's so cool. But yeah, to summarize this video, I'm really happy with my choice of basically picking Warlock as like my first real DDO class and taking it through as long as I have. I feel like the utility the class has given me with the sheer and raw damage output has been really valuable to me. Just deleting things with every press of your Eldritch Blast, having abilities which are game-changing at the snap of a finger. I'm really quite excited to see what utility I'll bring to a party or raid setting, but I guess take this with a pinch of salt. But if you're a new player and a solo player, someone that just likes to run with a hireling, you cannot go wrong with Warlock. There are different ways, of course, to build it, but certainly the way that I've played the Warlock and the way that I've researched how to play it and how to build it, I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, if you enjoy this kind of just sit down chat kind of discussion about things that I'm doing in DDO, classes that I'm playing, builds that I'm playing, etc., then yeah, let me know down below in the comments, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.